Hello again, and welcome to Chapter 3, Writing the Constitution of the United States of America. We got a lot to get through, and I want to see if we can get through all of it in one video, so let's go. First things first, Articles of Confederation. The Articles of Confederation are a reaction to Great Britain, and by that I mean the former colonies, now states, had a negative experience with Great Britain, which they viewed as a strong central government that was reaching down and violating their natural rights with their taxes and other policies. So, when Great Britain goes away, American Revolution, the Articles of Confederation are intentionally a very, very weak national government plan that will fall apart because of how weak it is. What do I mean? Well, first things first, every state is equal. It doesn't matter how big you are or how small you are. Everybody gets to send one representative to the legislative branch. Oh, and there was only a legislative branch. There's no executive, no president, no judicial, no court system, no Supreme Court. Biggest thing is that under the Articles of Confederation, the United States could not tax. They lacked the power to tax, and tax means money, and as you know, money is what you need to get things done. So, the Articles of Confederation won't be able to get a lot of stuff done because they won't have the power to tax. Also, they had no power to regulate business, fancy word, commerce between states. So states are going to act like independent countries, and the Articles of Confederation is going to have no ability to stop that. Also, no common national currency. They're not going to be able to print and coin a national United States money under the Articles of Confederation. So, with that said, they're going to be very, very weak. Now, don't be negative. You shouldn't be negative all the time, okay? Let's talk about at least one thing that they did well. They were two things. They were how they handled the land that was north of the Ohio River. You can see right here, north of the Ohio and east of the Mississippi. This is land that had yet to be fully explored by the United States. This land would be sold first, divided up. If you look right up here, divided up into these 6-mile by 6-mile townships. That was the land ordinance. The Land Ordinance of 1785 dealt with the land. 2 years later, the Northwest Ordinance will deal with laws and people and statehood. Here's what it said. Once you get 60,000 people, this land can become a state. But for the record, there will be no slavery in this land, and that's going to be a big deal. It's kind of setting the precedent that up north there's not going to be slavery with the territories, and that will be a different case down south, but we'll get into that more later. As we said, the Articles of Confederation had a number of problems. You'll see them right here once again. No power to regulate commerce, no power to compel states to obey international treaties signed by the Congress, couldn't declare war without unanimous support of all the states. So yes, they could, but in actuality they couldn't. Power to tax is going to be a huge issue. No power to print or coin money. They get really, really, really messy. And then it all falls apart with Shays' Rebellion, really, which is in western Massachusetts, a group of farmers who were in debt and having their farms foreclosed on, started a rebellion that would get put down, but it would get put down by the Massachusetts militia, because remember, the Articles of Confederation government couldn't even tax to raise a military force to put down Shays' Rebellion. So with that, the American people realized a change has to come. The Articles of Confederation were non-premium, and now it is time for a premium Constitution. So the Constitutional Convention is held, and who's in charge? Well, I guess you could say who the president is going to be George Washington. He's the presiding officer. Now, he's not going to talk a lot at all. He's going to stay very, very quiet at the convention, but he's going to lend his enormous prestige, vocab word meaning great presence, the respect that he gets for his great status at that time. The convention means something because George Washington is there. Presiding officer, though he doesn't talk. I'll tell you a guy who does talk a lot. That's James Madison. He's going to be called the father of the Constitution. He's going to write the Virginia Plan. He's from Virginia. Brilliant political philosopher, and he's going to take down copious lots of notes of what happened at the proceedings. We know what happened then because of the notes that James Madison, father of the Constitution, took. How about our old buddy Roger Sherman? was a very enormously well-respected member, framer of the Constitution. He's going to bring the Great Compromise. Okay. I've been talking about plans and compromises. So what are they? Here's the first thing. The Virginia Plan's like the first plan of new government that gets thrown out. And what it is, it calls for three branches. You can see them: judicial, executive, and legislative. Old Articles of Confederation only had one. Now we've got three. The Virginia Plan has three branches. Now, the legislative is bicameral. That means two houses. One's based on population, and the other is based on population. So the Virginia Plan is going to be a great idea for the big states. That means the more population you have, the more representation you're going to get. Of course, this was not liked by small states. And so the New Jersey plan comes out, which is a similar plan, but tweaked for small states. This has a judicial, an executive, and a legislative branch with one house, if bicameral, two houses, one house is unicameral, which calls for equality between states. Now, the small states and the big states fought until a great compromise was reached. Now, the great compromise looks easy to us. Three branches, keep the three branches, people like that. Let's go with a bicameral legislature. Let's stick the two house. But Virginia had all population houses. Well, pluck one of those population houses, and then we'll take the equal between states house, boom, we'll peel that away and put that down, and then we'll have our compromise. The population, that house today is called the House of Representatives. The more people you have, the more representatives you get. What's equal between the states, that is called the Senate. For example, here are the two senators today from Rhode Island. Here are the two senators today from California. You'll see that they are the same amount, two for each state. Well, here are the representatives from Rhode Island, and here are the representatives from California. So the more people you have, the more representatives you get in the House of Representatives, but the Senate is the same. That, my friends, is the Great Compromise. The 3/5 Compromise deals with a much more serious and is a more embarrassing aspect for us as Americans from the Constitutional Convention. Now, if you have more people, you have more power. So the Southern delegates at the Constitutional Convention wanted slaves to count as full citizens, because if you counted them, then that meant that you would have more representation, you'd have more power. The northern states did not want that. So they made a 3/5 compromise, which means slaves will count as 3/5 of their population. So for every 5 slaves, 3 of them will count, 2 of them will not count. This is a compromise that is just another sign of the road that will eventually lead us to civil war in the 1860s, but that was just one part of it. The other part of it, the southern states demanded that the international slave trade couldn't be banned for 20 years. So in 1808, that means up until 1808, the international slave trade could not be banned. These are compromises made over the issue of slavery. Now, with the slavery issue, I don't want to say taken care of, because it wasn't taken care of, but temporarily pushed off. And with the compromises over representation put together with the Great Compromise, now we have a constitution. Now this constitution is based off the principle of limited government. It says that federal law is the supreme law of the land when constitutional. So if it's a battle between state or federal national law will win. But otherwise, the states are given a lot of leeway to govern themselves. And the federal government is limited to the powers that are written in the Constitution, either expressed or implied. There's a system of checks and balances between the three branches. You don't want one of the branches to take over the other. So, for instance, executive president can veto an act of Congress. Well, the legislative Congress could remove a president. That'd be if we had impeachment, and then the Senate would convict. Supreme Court can declare laws unconstitutional, but remember, the legislative branch has to approve judges on the Supreme Court. The executive is the person that appoints people to the Supreme Court initially, and then the Supreme Court can declare acts of the president unconstitutional. Checks and balance to keep one from taking over the other two branches. Amending the Constitution is hard. It takes a lot of time, and this was done on purpose to prevent constant change. The framers didn't want this Constitution being ripped up and changed all the time. So amending the Constitution was intentionally a difficult process. Okay, so we've got ourselves a Constitution. We have the AOC. We threw them away. See, look, they're gone. They're gone. We have a new, beautiful Constitution. We love it. But it doesn't actually take effect until it gets ratified, until it gets put into law, and the states are going to be the ones to do this. Now, we have two groups that are going to form over this ratification. One's the Federalists. Now, they're going to believe in a strong central government, especially to promote economic, means making money, development, and public improvement. So they're going to kind of view the government as a tool which can be used for good. Leading Federalists from Virginia are going to be George Washington. Of course, he was the presiding officer of the Constitutional Convention. He'll want this Constitution to go into effect. And then James Madison, who was the father of the Constitution, he's also going to want this Constitution to go into effect. So the Federalists are going to be the big pro-Constitution people. Now, today, one could make the case that if you looked at individuals who see the government as a tool for good in society, for solving big problems, that government is a good solution, would be more liberal Americans today, typically associated with the Democratic Party. I'm over the face of Mark Warner, Senator from Virginia, Democrat, and of course President Barack Obama, Democrat as well. So understand, it's not like these guys wake up and say, ah, man, feels good to be a Federalist today. No, they don't think that way. It's the idea of big government. That then bigger government were Federalists. Today, bigger government, you would think more as liberal Democrats. So the opposite is true, right? Generally speaking, anti-Federalists. Anti-Federalists were those that fear an overly powerful government destructive to the rights and prerogatives of individuals and states. So they're going to say that, oh, we don't want big government violating individuals' natural rights. And they're going to want more power to go to the states. Well, who were they? Patrick Henry was certainly one of them from Virginia. Remember, he says, give me liberty or give me death. He's focused against big government and more on individual. George Mason to the right. George Mason will write the Virginia Declaration of Rights, which also focus on individual rights. These are more anti-Federalist. And then today, one could make the case that more conservative thinkers, conservative will think generally Republicans, who view, who are more small government and emphasize states' rights more, that these would be the anti-Federalists of the 1700s, would be the Republicans of today, in theory. I am blocking the face of Governor Bob McDonnell and Mitt Romney, Republican presidential nominee, last election cycle, on display. Once again, do not wake up and say, man, it feels good to be an anti-Federalist. It's just they're more in this small government camp, okay? Now, the battle is on. The Federalists will write the Federalist Papers. These were documents written by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Jay, which lay out the reasons why the Constitution should be ratified. They do this to win support for people reading these newspapers, to say, hey, this Federalist paper, this Constitution seems like a pretty good idea. Now, they're going to win over many people, but they're not going to win over all anti-Federalists. The anti-Federalists are going to be wanted to have the promise of a Bill of Rights added to the Constitution. And a Bill of Rights will be added at the very end, written by James Madison, the same person who wrote the Virginia Plan. Now, this is going to be the first 10 amendments of our Constitution today, designed to protect individual liberties and to give power to the states. When James Madison went to write the Bill of Rights, he relied heavily upon Thomas Jefferson's Virginia Statute for Religious Freedom and George Mason's Virginia Declaration of Rights. With the Bill of Rights in place, ratification went down, and New York was the last state to ratify the Constitution, which is our government today. I hope you enjoyed this fabulous look into the Constitution. Hit those class notes, hit the video notes, and I wish you good luck.